Well, hello, everybody. We're live on Facebook now, although I see I'm not very good about getting to Facebook and answering some questions once in a while, but I do get them answered on the Zoom, or you're available to ask me questions too, a little bit more towards the end of the presentation. So thank you for joining this morning. I really appreciate it. We have people from all over the US, and that's really so fun to see and to get to talk to you individually once in a while also. We are going talking about Candida today, and I always learn stuff. I say that all the time. I wish I could say that I was an expert in Candida. It just kind of blows me away how much information there is. And when you're talking about 200 different species and all the things that they can do in our bodies or to different species, it does kind of blow you away how Candida affects our lives. So I'll go ahead and share the screen, and then towards the end, we'll open that up for any questions or comments or ideas you want to share with anybody else. I think I need to take some lessons in using Zoom a little bit better so that you wouldn't have to wait on me. But anyway, we are up and running. I hope everybody can see the screen and hear me. Let me know if you can't. We are all here. So basically, you can see this on WAVwatch Frequency Fanatics later if you would like, or share this idea or any of the other videos. I know I have about 55 or more or over videos at this point in time with different topics. So I appreciate you sharing those with others or letting people know that they are available. And don't forget all about the WAVwatch. That's why you're here. That's our common link, is the WAVwatch, and just wanting to learn about our lives and our health. And I do appreciate that so much, that people are interested in learning. So remember, the WAVwatch is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or medical condition. Obviously, I use a lot of testimonies, and those are just testimonies that people have given me. Now, we do have a few names that sound like a medical diagnosis, but those names are how they are relating the sound frequencies to them. You have to have a way to label, obviously. So we are just using the medical names. When I first started developing the WAVwatch, I took it to a place that was in America, and I was so excited that possibly I would be able to have the watch made in America. And sadly, they only were able to, how do I say this? They couldn't do what we needed to have done at all. And they told me that I could use 4 letters to describe the different frequencies. That was all that they could do. And that just blew me away. So what I have now, what I got, although it's not made in America, it has the ability to use any amount of letters that we want in any combination, and to actually label them the name of the sound frequency, which a lot of times is that medical terminology. So that was a lot of information just to tell you how hard it would be to think about labeling something with 4 letters only. And don't forget that we absorb frequencies through our left hand more and pass it through our right hand. That's how, ancient history was developed. We started shaking with our left or our right hand because they actually knew that. And then we are using frequencies like a song, basically. These are acoustical frequencies. And I always say that your body hums with different songs a little bit differently. Sometimes I don't like a song, and my body just tunes it out or it goes on. It doesn't hurt it. It doesn't upset me, quote unquote. But sometimes, you're going to move and rock with the song and your body will like it just a little bit better. And it's the same thing with these frequencies. Sometimes your body will like a frequency better than another one. I have also made playlists for you. And I know a lot of people have heard me say this time after time. But we have some new people always, so we're just making the rounds here and giving more information. But you can make your own playlist. That's what that's for. But I have tried to develop playlists for you so that you don't have to do that. And I think the most obvious one is, somebody told me that they had Lyme disease and they made a playlist and, had 70 ideas on it. And I said, oh, did you get all the ones about Lyme disease? And they're going, well, yeah, I put the Lyme disease one in there. That was all that they saw because they were looking through a list of 850 ideas. And that is really hard to use to make a playlist. To me, it's much easier to start with playlists that I already have made and add to them if you feel that you need to. That way, you're not accessing 850 to 70 some ideas that are in the files A through Z. And you can certainly do that, but just make sure that you get all of the frequencies that are available. Like Lyme disease, there is not just one idea, there are 25 ideas in its own icon specific for Lyme. All right. And then also don't forget, if you're concerned about the length of the frequency, if it's 8 minutes, it's just the frequency itself. And that is the length of time that many people who have worked with frequencies suggest. So that's the minimum amount of time that we want to play it. Usually, if the frequency is up to 15 minutes, I've added inflammation, pain, and trauma because so many people need that all the time. To me, that's one of the most important frequencies on the WAVwatch. And then if you have 30 minutes or more, I've combined several other ideas so that you don't have to do that. Because if you're killing like Candida, like we're talking about, if you're working with Candida in your body, you want to make sure that it's getting out of your system. You don't want to just kill Candida and then it's in your system and becomes very toxic. So in case people don't know that or forget, then I am able to make a larger frequency set for you that has that included. So finally, we are here basically on where I want to start today and how dangerous that actually Candida can be. Let me see if I can get something right here. So Candida is dangerous. And I don't think that we've been told how dangerous it is. If you have someone in assisted living or a healthcare facility, you may know this already, but they have and are notating and are maybe now telling us if we think to look. It's not, just common. Candida can cause serious illness and death in people who are already sick, who use invasive medical devices. So we're talking about so many catheters and things that are used in different systems. They get an infection and the Candida can be deadly. And then in healthcare facilities, there's more and more problems with that. So about 30 to 60% of infected people have died from yeast, although that's quote unquote based on a little limited number of patients. But it's getting more and more obvious that things are not as they should be in some of our facilities, and people are having problems with those. Now, there's even a new deadly fungal infection spreading at an alarming rate, and this is from the CDC. And this is a new type of yeast called Candida auris, if I'm saying it right, and it can cause severe illness in people with weakened immune systems. So it's a drug resistance Candida. And I've already mentioned that we have many, many kinds of Candida. A couple of websites were saying 154, but most of them were saying 200 different types of Candida. And there are more expected to morph, to change, to become common, whatever phrase you want to use. So Candida is a problem. And then I guess this one's out of line a little bit, but again, we are now realizing that certain kinds of viruses, parasites, molds, and fungus, candida is what we're talking about, and bacteria have been established with certain cancers. So now we're learning that candida can even be connected to cancer, although medically they're not quite saying that yet. So we'll talk about that just a little bit more towards the end of the presentation. I thought this little chart said it all. It may be just a little hard to read, a little bit blurry, because I tried to blow it up and make it look big for you. But candida overgrowth symptoms. Can you see anything that you might have? Sinus inflammation, Oh, poor memory. The list goes on and on. Look at this: anxiety, headaches, vaginitis, excessive fatigue, acne, athlete's foot, irritability, muscle weakness, persistent cough. And I could read them all, but I think you're getting the idea. Candida causes a lot of problems. But that's not all. So we have more and some images. 80 to 90% of our skin yeast infections are caused by Candida albicans. So these are just some nice pictures that I picked out. You should have seen, if you really want to be informed a little bit better as to the severity of what Candida can cause in some people, you should just type in your Google search or whatever, images of Candida skin infections. And I'm still a little upset about some of the pictures. And I guess what I'm saying is I put in some nice pictures, some of the ones that we could handle. So Candida can be unbelievably deforming at sometimes for people. And that is a huge, deep, systemic Candida infection. So start thinking about, if you've got a skin infection, start realizing that, it's just not a skin infection. It's probably Candida or one kind of Candida. So many problems connected with that. So these are some more symptoms. And again, I don't want to read them, but the first chart really didn't have all of the things that I saw in several different areas. So autoimmune diseases, even our thyroid problems can be connected with Candida. Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, rheumatoid arthritis can be from this, fibromyalgia, so many long-term problems. Of course, we've already mentioned this chronic skin issues, but hives, eczema, psoriasis, vaginal problems, UTIs, all of our fatigue, our brain fog, digestive, we're talking about bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea. Those are all, or could be, connected to some kind of Candida. You might remember when you were little or being around a baby, a lot of times they might have some oral thrush. And so that is very, very interesting how, young babies can have it. They can be born with it. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then they pass it back and forth between the mother if they're nursing, when they're nursing. So all kinds of problems that we don't really think about. I hadn't thought that much about how severe Candida was. Hormone imbalances just from Candida. And the list could go on. So here's another one I kind of highlighted and kind of took it by itself, but there is a kind of arthritis. Candida arthritis is associated with pain, stiffness, and swelling in your joints and often affects the hips and the knees. And it can also cause bone infections or osteomyelitis. which can cause much tenderness in your bones, pain in your bones. So here we have Candida deep into our bones and connected with arthritis. And then the previous slide, even the rheumatoid arthritis. So I think this is something that we're not really addressing very much. We try, a lot of people do try. There is that possibility that we're trying, but sometimes it can get away on us. So if you're using the WAVwatch, hopefully you're using the immune system categories once in a while. So normally your immune system is going to repel those harmful organisms and help you to maintain that good and bad balance. You know, of the bad ones, we have to have some of those, but we want more good, obviously. And so a starting point, you know, is the immune system folders. So we've got fatigue, general body support, immune ideas. Again, I have inflammation, pain, and trauma built in there. Pain, sepsis, maybe your body has gotten overtaken, you know, systemic support. And one of my favorites is the vagus nerve. So play through those once in a while. If you know somebody that you're around that is having a lot of skin infections, that's a good starting point. You may not know what they are, but now all of a sudden your mind might go to, well, it could be Candida, you know, because of the information that I'm trying to share with you today. But start with immune system if you have the time. If not, dig just a little bit deeper and think outside the box. So you could go straight to the germ folder and then pick Candida, yeast, and molds. So this is where I have put together as many things as I could find for that I could share with you. And the Candida combo is a long running one. And then the fungus and mold combo is a long running one also, so that you can just click these and run them all night long if that's of interest to you. But another idea, if you are just running that folder and you click if you pick Candida combo, it will just run through everything in that whole folder from start to finish. And because I have Candida 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, detox and limps built in, I have all of those built into the Candida combo. So you would be playing them twice before it shuts off, giving you a little bit longer idea if you are not looping that around. And most of you know what I'm talking about now when I say loop, but you can do it either way. You can just run the Candida combo and loop it, or you could run the fungus and mold combo and loop it for as long as you want. Or if you let it run through that folder, by the time it stops, it's played everything twice. Hope that makes sense. Now, we can use lots of different things for Candida, but this is the problem. We have to get everything in balance to be able to use it. And I was trying to find some essential oils, you know, some very specific ones. And I really got blown away, you know, just over the top. It's like one article would say 6 top essential oils, and another one would say 9 top essential oils. And the list would go on and on. And they were all different, you know, on everybody's list. So I found this particular chart and I just thought I'd share it with you. Almost, if you don't have one essential oil, there's another one that could be very helpful with different Candida ideas. So again, if you're a muscle testing person, you could maybe pick the strongest one. But so many of these essential oils work very nicely for Candida problems. You know, look them up on your own and that way match what you already have in your repertoire and use those if necessary. Or if you choose to buy something because it was recommended highly in several articles, that's great. But I was just wanting to share with you that many, many essential oils are very good. And that's because they're very high frequencies, obviously. I don't even sell essential oils. I just like them. I'm not trying to, you know, again, sell you anything. I'm just trying to let you know that these are high vibrations, high frequency oils, and that's part of why they do work. I love that concept. And obviously, that's what we're all about today. So here's a few other ideas. I hope you can see. I'm not for sure on my screen here, but one of the main ones is to take probiotics. Now, obviously, some people say this works really well, but I think if you don't get your body set or you don't continue to do this, if we fall off the wagon, so to speak, sometimes those will come back in because we have a yeast overgrowth with spores that tend to just move through our system, and they can take hold and come back later, So yes, take probiotics, work with your immune system, support your natural bacteria so that they can keep those yeast infections down. Eat some yogurt. Again, it's probiotics, but make sure that you are getting a good kind that doesn't have the wrong kind of sugar in it. We have to look at everything, don't we? I have a hard time with that. But luckily, I am close to the farmers market in the Kansas City area, and I can get homemade yogurt every week. Love it. All right. Saltwater rinses. I don't know how much to be reading to you. I never do. This is kind of a big one here. But over and over again, we hear salt, salt, salt. So most of us have recipes. We're taking some baths. And again, you can be helping yourself with a saltwater bath, saltwater rinse. If you've got thrush in your mouth, you can gargle with salt water. I remember doing that as a kid all the time, even though I don't think that salt was necessarily the kind I prefer now. It was the old Morton's white purified salt, but it still did help to rinse our mouths. So if we just dig just a little bit deeper and go back for more information about salt, you will be changing to a Himalayan, a real salt, Redmond's real salt, or the Celtic sea salt, and use a better salt that has 80 minerals in it for some of these areas. Coconut oil is another really good one. It's a good antifungal, and you can use all kinds of coconut oil in many, many different things, whether you're, putting it on your skin, whether you're eating it, whether you're, gargling with it. Excuse me, that wasn't the word I wanted to say, whether you're squishing it in your mouth. I'll get my phrasing right here in a minute. But coconut oil is wonderful because it is antifungal. So as many different ways as you can use coconut oil all the time is going to give you some protection. And then here's a specific mention of tea tree oil. And that is very good. Obviously, it's one of the essential oils that has been picked out. There are many good essential oils, but this is one that can be helpful. But just be careful that you're not just applying it too often, and to use it in moderation so that it doesn't irritate you. I even bought a bath salt the other day that came with the tea tree oil in it. So those are some ideas that you could actually be doing. And the last one on the list is antifungal medications. So some of these have been helpful for people. And of course, other people with antifungal medications have many side effects and problems. So do as many natural things as you can so that it doesn't get to the point that you have to consider a medication. That's what we're all about, is trying to protect yourself. These are some foods to protect yourself against candida. And we already kind of mentioned the coconut oil, but there's garlic, there's curcumin, xylitol is really a good sugar. And I mentioned that before. If you get xylitol that is not made by a chemical company, get the most unrefined, fresh xylitol that you can, the best. You can have some support with things that you think need a little bit of sugar or sweetener in them. So it has microbial properties. So that's a very good one. I raise my own aloe vera plants. I have to thank my mom for that. We did that when we were kids. We always had an aloe vera plant that we just pinched off for a burn, that kind of thing. And so I remember that. And as I got to studying it, aloe vera is an amazing plant. So you could put that on different areas of skin. There's lots of aloe vera drinks and things like that. Pomegranate is another one that we could add to that. So the pomegranate uses are good for candida. Kombucha is another one. Sometimes you'll see in different places there are special diets for candida or yeast diets, and they tell you not to drink kombucha for about a month. So you would kind of want to make your own decision on that. But kombucha is basically a good type of a product that has good probiotics and good polyphenols in it, which have been helpful against candida. And then again, mentioning a couple of probiotics. So those are all good. Now, of course, I had to keep talking. I hope I don't bore you too much because this is so important. Foods that prevent yeast infections, and we've kind of covered it, but sometimes people like to look at it in different ways. And so it's kind of saying the same thing with just a couple more ideas. And this might be something if you need to, share with somebody, if you want to snap a picture or whatever, or, refer to this slide later. But apple cider vinegar is very good for yeast infections. The fermented foods, the kimchi and the sauerkraut, that kind of thing. We added to that with the kombucha, idea on the slide before. But all the vegetables are good. The broccoli, asparagus, cauliflower that we need to be eating more and more. Coconut oil, we already mentioned that. We didn't talk about flax and chia seeds. So those would be a really good possibility for yeast infections of all different kinds. And again, this goes on and on. You cannot believe the amount of things that really are yeast infections. So we have fermented dairy products. We could also add in bone broth. That's all those minerals and different spices. So don't forget that our foods that we're eating every day can be helpful. And of course, then if we throw in all of this sugar, we've just kind of negated what we've done. So we have to be very careful about our diets because it can cause problems. And of course, the sad diet, the American diet, does definitely cause problems with candida because there's so much sugar in it. Now, I want to show you a way that you could test to see if you have an overgrowth of candida. And it's just a spit test. It's the easiest thing ever. And you can spit into a glass of water first thing in the morning. And you're supposed to have some bubbles on the top. But if you see strings going through it, if you see cloudy specks in the center of it, and then cloudy saliva that settles to the bottom in about, 2 to 30 minutes, somewhere in there, then you probably have a problem with candida. Now, of course, there are all kinds of naysayers that say, oh, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't, blah, 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 blah. And the list goes on. But I think it's worth doing if you're worried about candida so that you can step into it and be a better caretaker for your own body. That's what this is all about, is taking care of your own body. And then if you do something like this, if you try this spit test and you are concerned about candida, you can begin working with some natural ideas, or if your choice is to go to the medical community, that's fine. At least you've gotten yourself educated a little bit better, and you can do some things and start doing some ideas there. And then we can have so many things to think about and the importance of this and the long-term dangers. This is what we're trying to take care of. This is who we're trying to help. This is what we're trying to do. And it's everybody. It's 100% of the population is affected by candida. So the disease, or candida overgrowth, candida problems, I've already mentioned, can be passed, on to children at birth, or possibly the baby picks up candida and passes it to the mother who might not have had it. It goes both ways. So that can start at an early age. And then when you see some pictures of children that have been overwhelmed with candida and their skin and all of these kind of problems, I think it'll kind of slap you in the face, the importance of dealing with candida probably all the time. That's what I would say. All the time is we need to be aware. We need to be working with foods. We need to be working with some essential oils. The list goes on of things that we try to do. And when we're doing it very specifically, we're helping ourselves out with more than just candida, obviously. So long term, candida makes so many toxins in our body. And then these, chemicals that are in our body produce cancer. So long term, they are now, quote unquote, some places starting to connect candida and cancer. So chemical sensitivities can occur, and then the cancer, as mentioned earlier. Now, one that kind of slapped me in the face, it's like, oh yeah, duh, it disrupts your brain function. So, wow, here we go. I mean, one of the first slides that I showed you was all of the ideas about anxiety, hormonal disruptions, the list goes on, but all of it was really connected with brain ideas. So then, wow, it sets us up for development of dementia and Alzheimer's as we age, because candida does cause problems in the brain. So, wow, think of it as we look around at different people as age, as our society is aging, more and more dementia and Alzheimer's. So we've kind of set ourselves up for so many brain problems. We've talked about chemicals before. The list goes on things I've talked about. But here is something that we could have had since a child, and it is beginning to be connected with dementia and Alzheimer's. So I found this idea just to kind of circle around and get us back on track to thinking, what could we do? Yes, our foods could be good. Yes, our essential oils can be good. Everything can be good, but sometimes it just doesn't all work together because people are having more and more problems with candida, and candida tends to be morphing and recreating itself, and we have more and more kinds that they expect there to be more kinds as the years go by. So candida always comes back because they're spores and they seem to be outside the circulatory system. So I found this, and it's called Win Your Battle Against Candida.com. And they make particular remedies for candida. And what they're saying is that they use the food, they use supplements, they used XYZ ideas, and they didn't have that good a success because they weren't getting the spores. And so they found the best thing was energetic frequencies that go everywhere in the body and into the spores. So not that they were backing up the WAVwatch, but I'm just telling you that does verify what we're doing with the WAVwatch. So a key to success to getting some of the candida out of your body does seem to be to work with energetic frequencies. So the hard coating of the spores can't protect themselves from these vibrational frequencies. So again, these frequencies that when you're wearing the WAVwatch, they go everywhere, and you have to use frequencies that are powerful enough to kill them. And so that's how I've programmed the WAVwatch. I use Rife frequencies in these combinations, and they tend to work very well with people. And again, just to remind you how it works, I am creating, or people who measured different frequencies are basically creating a frequency which is the same frequency as the candida. So that's just a way to say it. They measured it, and then we are using the same frequency. And then when those two frequencies meet, so as the WAVwatch sends a frequency into your body and there's already a Candida frequency in there, they're meeting, and then they oscillate and they over oscillate and stimulate each other and then fall apart, basically. So that's what a resonant, RESONANT, resonant frequency. So that's how the WAVwatch works. And it doesn't have to be loud. So remember, 8 is about the loudest I would suggest that you put your watch. It doesn't have to blow your body away. It feels it. And that's all you're doing is starting to the frequency. It will start a vibration, and one cell underneath your watch will feel that. And then it causes the cell right beside it to vibrate. And then that one causes the next cell to vibrate, and it just ripples through your system. And the specifics that I could find at 4.3 times the speed of sound. So it goes very, very fast. Don't forget that if you are using a supplement or a drug, these type ideas go through your body much slower. I mean, it sounds very fast. It's 1 foot a second, 1 foot a second, and it will zip through your body very quickly. But actually, many studies or several studies are saying that it goes so slow at 1 foot a second that the body heat actually burns it up, and only about 2% of a medication, and sometimes we're talking about supplements at the same time, can be absorbed by your body. So that makes perfect sense why they say that a drug has to be taken for, 6 weeks to 2 months or whatever their phrasing is for it to work. And it's the same way with different supplements that we try to take also. And they are just much slower working. And sometimes I give up on them, or I forget about them, or I buy a bottle and I forget to do it again. But with the WAVwatch, you've got it there and you can continue to use it and use it and use it. And it works much, much faster. So I just think that's a pretty interesting idea that I learned about the speed at which our body absorbs these. So once we get into die-off symptoms, once we get some frequency, a resonant frequency going, or we're improving our foods, or we're taking whatever medication or supplements we want, we can get some fatigue, foggy head, digestive upsets, allergy rashes, and that kind of thing with most of those ideas. Now, seriously, let me know if you've had a bad die-off system or a Herxheimer reaction with the WAVwatch. I have had one person that thought they did, but overall, normally, the WAVwatch does not seem to cause these die-off symptoms that we might have in other ideas. Again, it's letting us know, this statement is that people have Candida for years and years, and they can't handle the additional toxins released by the dead Candida. So if you're taking any kind of a product to kill something, make sure that you're taking something else to detoxify at the same time. And so that's why I build longer frequency sets into the WAVwatch, so that you have lymph and detox, and we have a whole folder on detox that you should be using also. So this is one that I've mentioned a couple of times already, but there are about 200 species of Candida. And so when you start looking at these, you are really blown away, by how many of them are in our system, in our lives, in our food, on our pets. The list goes on and on. They're all over. Now, I have talked about Dr. Simoncini before, maybe not a lot, but he's saying that we are so off base. He's been using baking soda for a cancer treatment for around 30 years. And he has a book, Cancer is a Fungus. And he's saying that it's obvious, it's so obvious to him, but Candida is one of the most overlooked cancer-causing problems there is. So he said cancer acts like a fungus, looks like a fungus, feeds like a fungus, grows aerobically like a fungus, can be killed like a fungus, so it must be a fungus. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a pretty interesting statement. So I was able to email him at one point in time, and he's saying that you should take baking soda basically for about a month, about a teaspoon a day in water, and then, hold off for a couple of weeks, and then you can do it again if you want. And he basically figured out that Candida, to him, acts like a cancer, because when he was going to med school years ago, they were literally, cutting people open for heart surgery, and there was this white film inside people. And at that point in time, they were actually telling them that that white film was part of the body. Now, Dr. Simoncini was saying, no, it's really not. That is the mold, that is the fungus, that is the yeast. So he changed his ideas radically and wrote a book telling us all about cancer is a fungus. And so he's saying that it is a candida fungus. And this is not hard to believe when we see that there are 200 kinds of candida. So they're not all going to be good for us, obviously. There's going to be lots of problems. And I don't know if they even have any statistics on, do people have 14 kinds of candida inside them, or do they just have one? There's not a lot of statistics on that idea, but it seems to me like we would have to be overloaded with the variety of candida that they have actually labeled and identified. So what we do have is a list of pathogens on the folder, and it's just an icon that you could use on the WAVwatch, and these would all be ideas. And you'll see that the first and the third one are the only ones that they have listed so far. The aflatoxins and the aspergillus mold are definitely listed as cancer problems, but they do not have Candida listed as a cancer causer. I'm going to jump ahead. The International Agency for Research on Cancer and Carcinogenic Pathogen list. I love these big titles, and I'm so glad that I have them to read here. But basically, the following pathogens are listed, hidden among chemicals as I work through them. They still don't have on this list that Candida can be a cancer causer. So it's so important for us to jump ahead and to go, oh my goodness, I need to be protecting myself. I need to be protecting my family and my loved ones from Candida. It's just not necessarily a fungus that affects the skin. It could be in my body and digging deeper and causing more and more problems. So that is why we need to really understand that somebody has already written a book and has been telling us for years that cancer is a fungus. And he's specifically saying that Candida is connected with that. So we really need to take Candida seriously and work on it in as many ways as possible. So if I slow down this just a little bit and show you this particular one, do not forget that another idea with the WAVwatch tying this in is that cancer cells explode with acoustical sounds. So people can use acoustical sounds like the WAVwatch, or they can even use their own voice. And so there are examples of 2 women with breast cancer who use their voices to tone the same frequency for 3.5 hours every day for a month. Now that blows me away, the dedication that they would have had to do that. But, I can walk around and wear the WAVwatch for 3.5 hours every day and have those same type acoustical frequencies on my wrist. But just some different types of proof. Now, you may say, well, that was only 2 women. There have been more studies. And then let me also remind you, this may not be a big study, but so many of our medical prescriptions that are developed have been tested on only 4 or 5 people and then actually made it through the drug process. So sometimes, maybe there's not a lot in this idea, but there isn't a lot of sound, solid evidence from prescriptions at some points in time either. And I have chosen to trust basically frequencies and something natural that was God-given than a concoction that was not very well researched either before it was put on the market. And then again, here is the list of aflatoxins, and you've seen these before. I did not put the list in of the detox. I would suggest that you always play that, get that in your, play mode, a couple times a week, at least a detox. We are in a toxic society. And then here was just a little bit more about how they have researched, and we know that aflatoxins, different kinds of molds, can be connected with cancers. But again, they are not saying this yet. Dr. Simoncini seems to be one of the main ones saying that Candida should be added to this list. So I think I'm kind of winding down. Use all the germ and detox frequencies. Don't forget to do that with your WAVwatch as a protective mode. So I really appreciate you being here today. I'm kind of done with my information. And so I'd love to have anybody that's interested give me some feedback, or we'll go with what we've got. Any questions, anything I can answer? Oh, I see I have some in this chat. I'm slow. Yes, we definitely agree. Okay. Got some good mornings, and then we also have to clear emotions under stress.
Linda,
Yes.
this is Shafia. And
Hello.
hello. I just want to mention this past weekend, there was a huge solar flare that started on Friday and kind of hit the earth on Sunday and caused a lot of aurora activity, but we couldn't see it because it was overcast. So you don't see what you don't see, but doing detox on EMFs, if over the weekend you kind of felt like what's going on, what's happening here, because a lot of people can feel the frequencies coming when we get a solar flare like that, because it is EMFs. And so doing the EMF detox was really helpful this weekend. Just heads up.
I love your input. Thank you so much. And, I noticed that too. And wasn't there something with the 3 planets aligning? I was fascinated by that. And so much stuff was going on energetically behind the scenes in our world. And that's just a great one. So don't forget to play the EMF detox. Perfect.
Hey,
Thank
Linda,
you for
it's
sharing
Joan.
that.
Yeah, that was fantastic information.
Hey, Linda, it's Joan. Can you wear the 2 different WAVwatches and do 2 frequencies at the same time?
Somebody asked me that. I guess I've never done it until this weekend.
And so it's not too much. It works.
I don't really know. I don't have any stats on that, but, I kind of think, it might be a little bit better to just do 1 set at a time so your body doesn't get overwhelmed. Maybe your body can handle it. I'm a deaf person, 1 ear completely deaf. And if I have too many frequencies, it just drives me crazy. And so that's all I'm kind of going from is like, that might be enough to make your body, kind of drift a little bit and not hone in on what you want it to hone in on, because there's many frequencies. I don't know. I'm just using that as an example.
Okay. And my husband tried to buy a warranty with our second watch and he wasn't able to. And then I went back and I couldn't buy a warranty either. We want to buy a warranty for our second watch.
You should be able to just go online and where it says buy now, just click and just select the warranty.
Okay, I tried that and
Yeah.
it didn't work. I'll try it again.
Well, not sure on that one, but maybe once you see the warranty come up, then go to the bottom of the screen and it says add now. Hopefully
Okay.
that will work.
Okay.
Yep.
I would love it if you added acidosis sometime to the watch.
I think I did. I don't want to make too much of it, but I have been working on a larger version. I mean, it's the same watch. It's just going to have a different SD card in it. And I believe I have that in started with my new selection. So,
Okay.
Linda, this is Audrey.
hi, Audrey.
Hi. You don't have heartburn on this watch, but I've used stomach pain. Is that and it seems to work.
That would work. There's also GERD. So that's really,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
That's just labeled under GERD, GERD. Yeah.
Okay. And I have a testimonial for you, and then I have a question too. One night, it was almost 11 o'clock. I'd already fallen asleep. I woke up and I was in pain. It was kind of like in the rectal area. And then I started thinking, oh, what is the Chinese clock? That would be gallbladder. I thought, oh, gallstones. So I had my WAVwatch maybe already on, and I set it to gallstones. The pain eased up. I fell back asleep. The next morning, I was fine. I was like, whoa. Yeah, I'm still talking about that. That was so amazing to me, Linda, that worked. Yeah.
I just love that Chinese body clock, and you can
Yeah.
actually go online and order a clock. I mean, it can be hanging on your wall as a clock, and that's a good idea. So I'm putting that on my Christmas list to actually give to people. I shouldn't announce that, but I just think it's fascinating.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I made the connection with the time and then the symptoms, and then put the watch, and it worked. It was
And so
amazing.
you had it. That's the neat part to me, is what we've
It's
tried
on
to
my
simplify.
nightstand. It's on my nightstand all the time. Well, the other thing is, and maybe I can just email you about this, but I sometimes think maybe I have a short in my watch because sometimes the button won't turn it on.
That is a possibility because those buttons wear out,
Oh, okay.
that kind of thing. That
Okay.
is. So let me know what we can talk about it later. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Other suggestions or ideas?
Linda,
Yes.
this is Lolly. I just wanted to mention that I have used more than one frequency at a time. And I think that it does work because I am so parched because I need to drink more water after, you're supposed to drink water when you're listening, before you listen to the frequencies, and the minerals is mentioned in the book, I believe, that
Yes.
and anyway, after I've listened for a long time, I am so thirsty. And I really feel like it's because I didn't drink enough water.
So how are you using more than one frequency at a time?
I'll have to private message you on that.
Oh, okay. I
Okay.
didn't know if it was anything to share,
Okay.
but yeah, so some people, and I sleep on an EMF, kind of a silver woven mattress cover, and that's putting out a frequency. So yeah, there's some different ways to absorb frequencies. You're listening, your ears are absorbing frequencies all night long. So, Joan was
But I
asking
just
about
noticed,
that.
I just noticed that I am just parched. I have to drink a lot of water afterwards, especially if I've done it overnight. So anyway,
Perfect.
just passing that on.
Yeah, that's what we are having some questions on. So thanks for your input.
Uh-huh.
Any other ideas?
Yeah, Linda, this is
Okay.
Vicki.
Yes.
I have a kind of a testimonial to share. my husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and he's been doing radiation treatments. And the doctor asked him yesterday, why do you think you're handling this so well? Why do you think, you don't have a lot of the side effects that some people have? And he didn't say this to him, but he said this to me when he got home. He goes, I know it's my WAVwatch because I set it up as a list of favorites, and he's one that will wear it when I mention, maybe you should wear your WAVwatch. But then he started noticing a difference in some of the side effects that they told him he would have. They were lessening. And so then he started being very consistent with wearing it. And so now he believes that is why he's handled the treatment so well. And so next time he only sees the doctor once a week. He goes every day for the treatment. So next week he's going to tell him he's going to wear his watch, and he's going to tell him.
Oh,
So
I'm
thought
so
that was cool.
sorry about his health, but I'm so glad that you are a WAVwatch person and he has a tool,
Yeah, he's
And I know
doing
you
very
have other
well.
tools in your belt, but that we have something natural. So
Yeah.
he's doing well.
Yeah, he's doing
Good.
very well. Better than they thought he would. He said, why do you think you're doing so good? So, well, you have to give God the credit first, and then the
Yes.
WAVwatch. There we go.
Well, he created all the frequencies.
That's right. That's
know.
right.
He spoke us into existence. So there we go. Anybody else?
Linda, it's Audrey.
Comments?
It's Audrey again. I have one more question. Are we only able to have 3 playlists on our watch?
Yes,
Okay.
that is all. Yeah.
Darn.
Yeah.
They changed. Playlist.
Well, and that's why I tried to make a lot of playlists for you. Every icon is a playlist,
Yeah.
if you think of it that way. But
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Linda, was someone asking me a question? I don't know how to do that chat thing. So
Anybody else have a question?
I
Did
thought-
anybody have a question for Vicky and her husband?
I actually asked her what files her husband ran on his watch.
Well, I can give you a list. I put on it liver and kidney detox, bone regeneration, because that can be one of the side effects. Radiation detox. I put fatigue. I put pain, inflammation, and trauma. And I put urinary tract infection because burning is one of the side effects. And
Yeah.
so anyway, I just tried to pick from his side effects and speak to those with the watch.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
You're welcome.
That was a great list.
I lent
Yes.
my watch to one of the ladies in the neighborhood who is undergoing chemotherapy. And I've got to take it back down to her. She has finished up her last session, and her hands and feet, that as a result of the chemo, had lost their feeling, and that had come back by using the WAVwatch on the inflammation, pain, and trauma setting. I'm also telling her she should be running the detox section. So all the detoxes as soon as she got back from her chemo, which she has done. And she, I think, has run them frequently after that. She's very, very sick, but getting better now in terms of the effects of the chemo. And I mean, it just hurts that she's. Did I miss something? Well,
I lost you there for a second.
can you hear me?
Yes, now I can again. Okay.
So my question is, if somebody, and obviously I couldn't just let her be and not come over with the WAVwatch for her, should there be other things that you would recommend that she should be running now that she's starting to recover from having had all the chemo?
You cut out a couple times there, but I think I heard you say a few things. It wouldn't hurt to run emotions if you haven't been doing some of those already. You know, the Bach remedies are excellent to build you up, you know, to increase her, you know, her frequency level. Those would be very good. And then I'm sure you're already running the liver and the kidney detox and things like that. Somebody else might have an addition to that, since I didn't quite hear everything, but I think you had a really good base there. And I don't know if, you know, she has any other problems except I'm rambling here. Possibly the germs. Make sure she plays through all of the germs, because our immune system. The two main ideas that we've had on the screen today: immune system and germs.
Perfect. Thank you.
Would anybody like to add to that? Any other suggestions for cleaning out somebody that's working with chemo and radiation, or radiation, whichever the,
How about the fatigue folder?
yes. Perfect. And that is part of the immune system one, so that would be a good one. Yeah. And I love the vagus nerve, and I've mentioned that a couple of times. That just takes care of so many things going through the upper portion of your body. It's really good to be an all-purpose product, easy, or, you know, it's one frequency that's very, very hard to hear, but it does a lot of things. Let's see.
I have a question on the soda, baking soda. You say a teaspoon. Does it matter when you take that?
You know, I don't remember the specifics on that. I know I always took mine in the morning, so I'm assuming that that's, you know, what I learned to do. So first thing in the morning is a little bit better.
Because there's so many
As-
things you do first thing in the morning.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just hard to know if it's okay to do it like after you eat or any time in the day, but I just was curious.
Let's see. Somebody had a question on the chat. What's the difference between weight loss and obesity? Basically, the weight loss folder, you know, has a lot of different ideas that can be helpful for you know, it's right here. These are a lot of ideas that could be helpful to lose weight. Tummy tuck is one of my favorite ones. And obesity, there isn't a particular frequency for that. I'm not sure if that's what you were asking, but there's one for overweight, you know, and then, you know, just the difference between weight loss and obesity is obviously the amount of weight that people have gained today in our society. We have a lot of people who are considered obese because of the amount of weight that they have gained for their frame. So I'm not sure exactly what you were asking, but the weight loss one just has a combination. And again, it's already a playlist for you. Just punch it and run it every once in a while. Okay. Hope that answers that question there. All right, anything else that we could cover today? I hope that was a little bit of information about Candida for you. Other than that, I think we're kind of winding down a little bit, unless there's any other questions. Beth Ann and her neighbor Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for being here.
Hi.
Hi there. All right, everyone. I'm going to have a program again next week, but so, and then if anybody's interested, I'm supposed to be on a show, the Mark Z show. You'd have to go to Rumble and look it up. He's also called the original Mark Z. And I will be on his show next Monday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and sharing a little bit about the WAVwatch. So he has a podcast, if that's of interest to anybody. Thank you for being here today. I'm going to kind of sign off and click everybody out unless there's anything else. See one more
Blessings on
message coming.
Monday.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Linda.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.